Welcome, everybody, to Cosmic Compass Conversations. First Monday in December in 2024, in case you're looking back historically, because that might be a theme today. Welcome. We are going to start, as we always do, with some breathing. This helps me connect. It will also help all of us connect together. Many times when leaders or healing practitioners would gather in the indigenous culture of Hawaii, and this is where one of my teachers arises from, the breathing could go on for 3 full days before they ever spoke to each other. So I say we do 4 breaths, and then we'll see where that takes us. All right. So finding your way into your body, if you want to close your eyes, you can. If that's not possible right now or it doesn't feel right, just lowering your gaze, bringing your awareness inward, really honoring where you are right now. If you are listening later, honoring where you are in the moment you are in, and allowing yourself to just come into your body, connecting maybe through your heart, solar plexus, sacral, root, somewhere in the body, bringing your awareness to your breath. And as you breathe in, expand your belly. And when you're ready, exhaling. Feeling your energy dropping down your legs, knees, shins, calves, ankles, feet. Breathing in up through the soles of your feet, expanding your belly. When you're ready, exhaling. Feeling your roots dropping down into the earth, if that's comfortable. Thanking the land upon which you are right now. Thanking all those who came before. Breathing in up through the roots, up through the soles of the feet, expanding the belly. Exhaling when you're ready. And feeling your energy dropping all the way down to the core. Thanking your ancestors for getting you here. Breathing in up through the root, up through the soles of your feet. Expanding the belly. On your exhale, releasing anything that isn't yours to carry. Thanking all those who've come before you on this land. Thanking our ancestors. And thanking all those ancestors you don't yet know. And just taking another breath, allowing your shoulders to settle, your hips to settle. And when you're ready, you can come back. I could be doing that for another 2 days, so probably good to come back now before I get too far in. All right. So I'm going to pull some cards for the week, and then I'm going to have our guest join us. I'm very excited about that. All right. First card for this week during Mercury retrograde, a week where Mars will retrograde, a week where Neptune will go direct. There's a lot of astrological components to the week. Our first card to help us navigate is the King of Wands. Now, most of you know by now that it's just, what do you feel? What do you notice? What do you sense? Take your time. These are for you. I will say just this little bit about wands are creativity. They are creative life force energy. So that's all I'll say right now. You can imagine if it's the King of Wands where it might fall in the hierarchy of it all. Our next card, and I don't think we've ever had that card yet, so I like the creativity is coming through. And our next card for this week, another creativity, energy, life force energy. And this is the Page of Wands. So again, what do you feel when you look at that card? What do you notice? What's going on for you? What does it remind you of? I know for sure we've never pulled either of these cards ever for Cosmic Compass. So, very exciting. And last but not least, for this week, this one we have pulled quite a number of times. The Hermit card. What do you feel? What do you notice? What do you sense? What do you notice differently this time than you have in the past? I can actually, sometimes because it's magnified on my screen, I can actually see the details even better. And these cards are the Light Seers Tarot from Chris Ann. She's a brilliant artist and her books are also excellent. So in the follow-up email with the recording, I will have her affirmations that she has for each card, which I think are brilliant. So, all right. So astrologically, as you know, Mercury is retrograde. The sun is in Sagittarius. We just had the Sagittarius new moon over the weekend, which was fabulous. I loved it. I have a Sagittarius moon, so that makes it fun. There is a lot to look forward to, and I would be remiss if I didn't discuss the Mars retrograde just for a moment, and I'll probably talk more about it next week as well. Mars is our planet of, guess what? Creativity and life force energy. So Mars, in its wisdom, has these retrogrades every so often. It's rare, but it's retrograde in Leo. So far, this first card is speaking volumes, I think, as to what might be going on. But it gives us an opportunity to kind of look at how we're using our energy, how we're utilizing our creativity. And that does apply, obviously, to that card as well in some ways. But a retrograde Mars also has a shadow side. I mean, everything has a shadow side. And so the shadow side of Mars is anger and rage, frustration, blocked energy, not having a place for that energy to go, stuckness. Leo in particular is very much about joy and play. It's also about confidence and leadership, but there might be some things for us to look at. Where am I feeling blocked? Or, because again, remember, Mars, any retrograde is asking us to review, renew, refresh, right? Review, renew, refresh. So if there's areas where we're feeling blocked, they might surface more prominently so that we can have an opportunity to look at what else we can do to support ourselves in that. Collectively, I think it's important to, especially with Mercury retrograde, let's just all be mindful of how we say things. I mean, I think it's really good to be passionate about who we are and what we, the feelings that we have are really important to express, because authentic expression is part of Leo, right? And Mars cannot be anything but authentic. And how we share things is also really important, particularly with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. And then, yeah, that's about all I want to say about that. But I am really excited because the creative energy is powerful. For those of you who want to write or do art, or art, as we like to say, or any other creative endeavor, actually a Mars retrograde is a great time to deepen into that. And even, I know most people would say don't start something during a retrograde, but truthfully, yeah, start something, get something started, do it with joy. Go slow. I mean, with Mercury retrograde, you're bound to go slow anyway. So just go slowly. It's all part of a bigger process. Mars will be in Leo for 6 months, which is a really, really long time and very powerful it's like an engine that's just revving up, getting ready for that creative energy to flow. So some of you here are writers, and I am about to bring our guest on. Nice segue, huh? Our guest is Sarah Barnes, who is a writer, and she's also many other things. So I'm going to bring Sarah in here, and I'm going to say welcome to you, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so honored to be included in this group and really looking forward to having a cosmic conversation with everybody.
Yes, we're going to have a cosmic conversation. So Sarah is many things. So I definitely want to say, Sarah, we'll talk about all the things, but this is her first book, She Who Rides Horses. Sarah won't tell you this, but this book has won a lot of awards. I looked it up. So well done, Sarah. I'm sure that wasn't necessarily what you went in for it to receive awards, but I do appreciate that other people are appreciating this book. And so thank you for writing it. Sarah, we're going to get into a lot of detail today. But I guess the one thing I wanted to bring this art, this character, this being into our conversation today. And would you like to introduce her to us?
I would love to.
Okay.
She introduced herself to me during a writing workshop where I had no intention to start writing a novel. But we had done quite a bit of work around opening to creative energy.
Mm-hmm.
And on the third day, the facilitator said, just at the end of the day, go out, write whatever comes to you. And so I sat down, opened my laptop, and it was like this download, and Naya showed up. And for a long time, I didn't know her name. She was just
Right, that happens, right?
she was just the girl.
Right. She was a
And
she who rides horses.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she lived probably around 6,000 years ago in the steppes of what is now southern Russia and Ukraine. Her people, she was the daughter of a clan chief. Her people herded cattle, sheep, and goats and hunted wild horses for their meat. But she dreamed of having a different kind of relationship with these fascinating and magnificent horses that she saw off in the distance on the steppe. And one day she happened to see a particular filly with a copper red coat, the same shade as her own unusual head of hair. And she decided she would come back the next day and see if she could capture the red filly with a rope. And from there, the more spiritual, mystical elements take over, and she has a magical encounter with the red filly and is given a task, which is to see with the eyes of her heart, create ties without the use of a rope. And when she is able to grant the red filly's heart's desire, then her heart's desire to actually get to ride on her back will be granted.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, and then She Who Rides Horses, that the first volume, it's the first volume in a trilogy.
Right.
So the story um, gets started in that first volume, and then I'm actually just about finished with the second one.
I know, so amazing. So we planned this so you wouldn't have to wait too long for the second book. This will give you time to read this book. And for those of you that are live on the call, and I'm sorry for those of you watching later, but for those of you live on the call at the end, we're going to do a raffle for a book. So, don't let me forget. All right. So Sarah, as you introduce her, Naya, and she, as I read the book also, and we're not going to tell you too much more about the book because we want to keep it, no,
No
no
spoilers.
spoilers. Yeah. Um, she really started living with me also. There's an energy here, and I wanted to kind of tie this in both on the creative side, the intuitive side, the cosmic side, but also the historical side. One of the things that Sarah brings is a PhD in history and years of teaching as a historian. Can you speak to how you're blending the history along with the creative, powerful, intuitive, mystical worlds here?
Yes, and it's been an adventure
Yeah.
for sure. Um, I became a historian in the first place because as a little girl growing up, I loved stories about what happened long ago and far away. Um, and so it was really the stories that drew me.
Mhm.
And as happens with so many passions that we end up shaping into professions, by the time that I had a PhD in history and was teaching on the university level,
Mhm.
somehow the stories had disappeared.
Yeah.
Um, and so I actually stepped away
Mhm.
from life as an academic historian, um, and horses had re-entered my life at that point, another childhood passion. And so I was spending more and more of my time at the barn teaching riding,
Mhm.
and really thought um, my days as a historian were behind me. I had always loved to write, but most of my writing had been, for academic purposes, journals, paper conferences, all that kind of thing. And I literally packed up the boxes and put them in storage and was really focused on the horse world. And so this writing workshop that I'd gone to was actually in the context of someone who'd become a mentor to me more in the horse world. And so when the book came to me, and it really was kind of like this download, this
Mhm.
story, um, I actually followed the inspiration first, because it did feel like this kind of sacred gift I'd been given to tell this story. And it wasn't until I'd been writing for a while that I stopped, not stopped, but I started to blend in the actual historical research. And so the story itself has always um, taken the lead.
Mhm.
But because I am trained as an historian, and my goal from the beginning was to make this story as accurate as
Mhm.
possible. Um, at some point I had to start doing the research. And the interesting thing was that elements that I'd included, for instance, when she has this initial encounter with the red filly, it's in this like ravine.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, my picture of the steppe is sort of
Mhm.
Mongolia, right? Where
Right.
there's, you know, far as the eye can see, there are no ravines. But it turns out that actually where horses were first domesticated, which was in this area of southern Russia and Ukraine.
Mhm.
The it's called the Pontic Caspian Steppe. It's just north of the Black Sea. There are actually some major rivers, the Don and the Volga, and there are in fact ravines, these riparian,
Yeah.
and so it's like, okay, the landscape that came to me in my imagination is actually
Mhm.
the accurate landscape. Um, so the research has has provided some guardrails, maybe, and
Mhm.
but it's actually been quite intriguing the
Yeah.
extent to which the story itself has, like I said, taken the lead, and the research has been able to come in and support it. So
Yeah.
I can I can make the argument that this is how it could have happened. I kind of that my elevator description of the book is sort of Clan of the Cave Bear meets my friend Flicka.
Both
So
books read, definitely read both books. I love it. Love it.
yeah, so there as an historian, I've tried to make it
Mhm.
as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but
is. It's very validating. That is one of the comments that came up in the chat. And I love it because it's really validating on the other side too, because I know for many of us, we're all highly sensitive people. There's a creative element to being highly sensitive. Those other realms really do exist. And so to get the validation of the accuracy of what's being shown to you is not something that everybody gets when they're doing a creative project. But it is a reminder to all of us that when we are receiving this energy, these reminders of what has come before, what might come after. You think about science fiction and how accurate science fiction has been. If for those of you that are science fiction people, it's like mind blowing. And did we follow science fiction, or did science fiction kind of predict? There's all those questions. But Sarah, when I was deep into writing my novel, which I have not published, it was interesting. It came to me that it was set in Cyprus, which of course I've never been to in my life. And I had an opportunity at one point to talk to someone who actually lived in Cyprus. And sure, everything I described was exactly the way it looked. And it blew my mind because I wasn't seeking to validate it per se, although I had thought about, if you're going to set it in a particular place, you probably should be accurate. I mean, that had crossed my mind, but I wasn't that far into the project anyway. So I'm really deeply appreciating how you listened and you wrote it down. Um, Sarah and I were talking earlier also about the word writing and the word writing. I call them homonyms because the way I speak, writing comes out writing. So, it's like the T is not always very enunciated. So I want to go back to the horses. It's kind of funny because there's so much it's just hilarious actually. When we think about um the energy of what we create. Okay. So thinking about life and what we create, right? I want to talk about the horses from a place of your experience. And then something I wanted to share about horses for me have always been wisdom keepers. And I wrote a tagline for my email a million years ago, and not really a million, I don't know how long ago, but mentor for wisdom keepers and leaders of a soulful, creative, and conscious future. At the time I wrote that, I honestly didn't know what it meant. I just knew that that was what needed to go in my email, right? So here I see you as one of those wisdom keepers. And I also see the horses as the wisdom keepers. And I also see Naya as a wisdom keeper. So Can you share a little bit more about your relationship with being a wisdom keeper, but then also the other wisdom keepers in your life?
So this is a story about the creation of a special relationship interspecies, horses and humans. And if you think about the course of human civilization over the last 6,000 years, horses have been by our sides through the entire span, and arguably have done more to shape and enable the the world that we've created than any other technology
Right.
that we've employed as
Right.
humans. I believe, and I'm not alone in this, among the sort of circle of horse people that you've been
I've
part of
been
as
blessed to
well,
meet. Yes.
that the so horses had a choice, right? They didn't have to be domesticated. There are plenty of species who have said no, thank you to humans.
Yes.
And so this community that this horse community that we're a part of has come to the realization that what horses offered us from the beginning was actually this connection to other realms.
Yeah.
And a offering of wisdom and teaching in terms of how to be better people, how to be better humans.
Yes. Exactly.
And they've stuck with us through it all. So we had some choices back in Naya's time.
Yes.
About how we were going to be in relationship with these beings. Yeah. We didn't necessarily make the right choices. And here we are, and they've stuck with us the whole time. And they are still offering to teach us how to be conscious and connected on a whole different level than we've really forgotten what our capacities are. Yeah. And they're still offering us that path. And so we have an opportunity to make other choices. And so part of what I feel like my responsibility with this story and as coming at it as a historian is if we can understand the past and the choices that were made in the past and the possibilities that were perhaps rejected, it enables us to make different, better, more informed choices in the future. And we are at a critical choice point as a species, and the horses are still there as our teachers. Yes. So this story that's been given to me to tell is my small offering in that process of changing human consciousness, reminding us of what's possible, what we're capable of, what true connection and relationship can look like. And these, horses they continue to fascinate us in the same way that Naya was fascinated 6,000 years ago, and they continue to offer to carry us into other realms. There's lots of tradition among shamanic peoples about the role of the horse as the messenger and the means of travel between realms. And yeah, so they're and just on a more daily this world level, they teach us about presence, about breath, about how to be connected.
Mhm.
So they have a very unique way of bridging, being very grounded in this world.
Mhm.
If you're not present and paying attention around the 1,200-pound horse, while at the same time um, connecting into um, a, a much wider and deeper essence. Yeah.
That's beautifully shared. And I have so many, so many questions popcorning in my brain. So I'm going to try to get to all of them and trying to keeping some notes here as well. Um, one of the things that you've talked about is how the horses have continued to stay present with us, even in the face of a lack of consciousness around not just them, but the planet in general and other animals and other people for that matter. Um, I don't know if you can answer this, but what is it? Why? What is it about this, them in particular, that gives them the capacity for this?
I think the answer that I've come to is linked to that that question that I alluded to earlier about sort of what was in it for the horses
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
chose to. Um, Horses are a social species.
Mhm.
Um, Connection is how they survive.
Mhm.
Relationship is is how they survive.
Mhm.
And that's true of other herd animals.
Mhm.
But the thing that's a little bit unique about horses is they combine um, that need for relationship and for connection with extraordinarily courage and curiosity.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
um, my answer to what was in it for the horses, why would they, choose to be
Mhm.
domesticated,
Mhm.
is that they were curious enough about another species
Mm.
and brave enough to approach
Mhm.
and to want to connect.
Yeah.
So they do, and this is still true of our domestic
Mhm.
horses today. And the more we allow them a voice and
Mhm.
allow them to be their authentic selves and listen,
Mhm.
um, the the stronger those bonds can be.
Yeah.
Um, but it's in their DNA. Um, it's in their neurobiology.
Mhm.
They are in the same way that we are. They are designed to thrive in relationship.
Oh, it's beautiful. And everything you said, the the courage, the curiosity, the presence, the consciousness, these are teachings for us. I mean,
Mhm.
that's so clear. Um, so many questions. Here's another one. And for those of you that are wondering, we don't prepare in advance. Sarah is just getting these questions right now. Sarah, in your opinion, and I agree with you, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, although I don't really know. I'm going to make a big leap having read this. Um, why Naya? Why a young girl to lead the way? Why the feminine?
So, because she's who showed up is my first answer.
Yeah, of course. She's the one who came in and who gave you the story. So
But
that's
yes,
number one.
but as I was writing and learning more about um, who Nye was within the system of her community,
Mm-hmm.
um, the um, the the community that she comes from showed up as being very patriarchal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to ask myself, is this because this is all that I can imagine? Because
Right. Your own filter.
my
Yeah.
own filter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then as I went and did the research,
Mm-hmm.
lo and behold, those pastoral herding communities that
Mm-hmm.
were the first to eventually domesticate the
Mm-hmm.
horse
Mm-hmm.
were actually the place
Mm-hmm.
and the time when patriarchy first arose. And I'm using patriarchy as a handy, almost academic term because it can sort of make people bristle.
Yeah.
But it's a term that encapsulates a paradigm or a way of seeing the world, a lens
Mm-hmm.
that understands the world in terms of fear,
Mm-hmm.
lack,
Mm-hmm.
so scarcity,
Scarcity. Yeah.
and power over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so hierarchy, domination,
Mm-hmm.
control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Turns out that all of those things arose within the human condition in a particular place and a particular time um, as the result of a change in mindset prompted by climate change. It
Wow.
actually did produce
Mm-hmm.
conditions of scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and as a character, she um, doesn't quite fit in
Mm-hmm.
to the community that she's in.
Mm-hmm.
So she does not conform to what are emerging
Yeah.
expectations
Mm-hmm.
of women. One of the primary signals of the emergence of patriarchy is actually control over women's reproduction
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that the animals that they
Mm-hmm.
domesticated and herded, that's the definition of domestication,
Mm-hmm.
actually is.
Mm-hmm.
An animal can be tame, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not domesticated until humans are controlling its reproduction.
Don't you love having a historian here? Someone who knows. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so why Naya? It's because she is an anomaly
Mm-hmm.
in her in an emerging
Mm-hmm.
system
Mm-hmm.
that and has the capacity
Mm-hmm.
still to connect
Mm-hmm.
with the red filly
Yes. Yeah.
on this level of relationship that we're talking about,
Yes.
rather than in
Mm-hmm.
this context of domination
Yeah.
and control.
Yeah.
Um, and there's actually been some recent historiography that's come out, archaeologists writing recent publications looking back, arguing about the timing of when domestication happened, of horses happened, and where, um, and it's really struck me that the lens that they're using, they are using this patriarchal lens and looking for what is the evidence of control
Mm-hmm.
so that we can make an argument about when, where, and how horses were domesticated.
Interesting.
And there is no consideration
Yeah.
of the role of relationship and how that's invisible in the past
Mm-hmm.
when we're
Except not.
Unless you're
Um,
using your imagination.
exactly. Or listening, right, to those other realms and
Yeah,
which are very
the
close.
imaginal.
The
Yep.
imaginal realm, exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh, Sarah, so many thoughts again. Just because of time. I mean, obviously we could sit here and talk for hours, but I wanted to kind of move in a bit of it's the same direction ultimately, but just bring up another topic to add to this beautiful mixture that we um healing and the relationship this that we see in the book and that continues in the other two as you write them and finish them is very healing. And your relationship with horses sounds like it's had its own journey. Your relationship with writing with the T has its own healing aspects. And your relationship with writing with an R and a D, writing, has its own level of journey related to it. And I'm wondering, and again, you share as much as you want to, um, if you'd be willing to share a little bit about the healing journeys of writing and all that has gone into this.
And so for me personally, that is my personal story, which I haven't gotten around to writing yet. But yes, I horses came back into my life a couple of decades ago, and I was very much on a conventional path with them, competing,
Mm.
showing all the the traditional ways of being with horses that I'd learned as a little girl. And but these horses kept coming into my life who were injured in some way. Either they had a hidden injury that I didn't know about that didn't show up until they were in my life, or something happened while I had them.
Mhm.
And for quite a while, because I had goals and ambitions as a competitor, and I love these horses, but I had these goals and ambitions, and I found other homes for them. And finally, a horse came into my life, and she was a 4-year-old warm blood mare, blank slate, 100% sound, who was going to be the one that finally helped me meet my goals. And lo and behold, if within 6 months of coming into my life, she didn't sustain an injury. And I can remember sitting in my driveway at home, having come home from the barn, and just despairing because it felt like the universe was telling me I wasn't supposed to have horses in my life. And, crying as hard as I've ever, and the little voice on my shoulder, well, maybe horses aren't supposed to be in your life. And then I cried even harder.
Yeah.
And then the little voice is saying, well, so that can't be right. And at that moment, I just had to surrender
Mhm.
and say, because I had such a bond with
Mhm.
this mare, and I couldn't keep, I couldn't keep doing what I was doing.
Mhm.
And so I just had to say, okay, I'm just going to follow this horse wherever she takes me.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. And that was over 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And my approach to teaching and writing had been evolving as the result of um, some work in the martial arts that I had begun doing with a guy named James Shaw, who taught Tai Chi for equestrians. And so I my feet were on the path
Mhm.
already, um, but this mayor Tio really came alongside me, and through a series of serendipitous events, which I was now sort of paying more attention to, I became aware of and connected with Linda Kahanov's work. She wrote the Tao of Equus, and it was at one of her workshops that the book came through. And so it's been well, early on there, I actually got a breast cancer diagnosis. So that was 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, and that opened all sorts of portals, um, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And so I had healing to do. The horses that came into my life had healing to do. Um, Linda has a wonderful card draw and book. I
Oh,
think
yes.
during the first couple of years of dealing with Tio's situation and my own
Mhm.
breast cancer situation, if I hadn't had those cards, I really would have felt lost.
Yeah.
And just the wisdom. The book is called The Way of the Horse.
Yes.
Um, but the card that I drew the most often in those first sort of 18 months was Chiron, the wounded healer.
Yes.
And what is the gift
Yeah.
behind the wound? And
Speaking my language.
yeah, and those cards continue
Mhm.
um, to shape the book, my understanding of um, things that come come along my path. Yeah, so the horses and healing and my own journey and my work as a writer and my work as a equine facilitated coach and riding instructor and where I am with the horse that I have now, and yeah,
It's
it's
all
all.
woven.
Mhm.
It's an extraordinary journey, and the healing again on different levels, and the chironic journey, as you alluded to, this is something that just I find profound. I'm always in awe of how our journey to heal, our journey to acknowledge first where we do need to heal, whether it's collectively or individually, takes us right into our gifts and takes us right into gifts in general. And so, you know, right now, so I'll just kind of bring this into the right now. Chiron is having its journey, the planet Chiron is having its journey in Aries. And so, one of the elements that creates stuckness right now, one of the wounds that creates stuckness in the collective, is this feeling that people may have that they don't even have the right to exist and that they don't feel loved. And that can play out in a collective form, but it can also play out individually. Even if you're not born with Chiron and Aries, you're still going to have the experience of that energy. So I find it really fascinating to see what comes out when where Chiron is in its journey collectively. And we have a young woman who, as you say, she belongs, but she doesn't belong. She knows she has the right to exist, but maybe she doesn't really feel that that's always being supported. You know, there's some thematic elements that you may or may not have consciously known about with Chiron and Aries that are showing up in this book, and I love that. Yeah, I love that. So I want to thank you for bringing those forward into our world. I do need to just point out that Sagittarius energy, which is where we are right now, is half human, half horse. And yes, this is a human on a horse. But I just revel in the fact that we did,
And archery is a
yes,
theme as
archery
well.
is a theme because it was a theme. I think,
Mhm.
and this is the thing, and what you shared about um, the history of the time through the archaeological lens and anthropological lenses is fascinating to me. There's a book that I read a while back now, but I recommend a lot to my students who are deepening into their work, called The Great Cosmic Mother. And it really does. And I'm sure you've read it because I mean, any historian would.
That's over here.
Yeah, mine's over here. Mine's over here. Um, that is a delving into how we have shifted forms from matriarchal to patriarchal. Um, it's a deep dive. And I really appreciate your understanding, knowledge of that. And I think this is why I'm really drawn to Naya and why she came to you, because she is that undomesticated.
Well, and book two begins actually with the Proto-Indo-European origin story,
Oh, wow.
which Naya's grandmother is overhearing the male priest
Oh,
expound.
interesting.
And so, without going too far down that rabbit trail of the Proto-Indo-Europeans and what was their origin story, it's a replacement
Mhm.
of the the idea of the cosmic mother
Ah, great.
with a male patriarchal
Yeah.
god. And we see this story in multiple cultures that
Yeah.
speak Indo-European languages.
Yes.
But my point being, what are the stories we are telling ourselves? Because the
Exactly.
stories matter, as do who who are the storytellers.
Yeah. Which actually, perfect segue, because I was going to say, you are a storyteller. I mean, and you are a historian, and you are an equestrian, and you are many things, right? That you bring to this. And the books become, at least for me, and for someone who's not a horse person, because we categorize here a little bit. But I am an animal person, an interspecies relationship person, we should say. I'm very clear on that. But I think that the delving in, the portal opens for me here. And it has, reading this has brought me back to, and I know this is probably true for many of you, some of my favorite books as a child. The Secret Garden. I don't know how many of you loved that book, but that was high on my list. And even Black Beauty, which again has a different flavor, obviously. But that was a very powerful book in my young life. And then I was thinking, because I don't have a relationship with horses per se, but as a child, as a young girl, this book opened a bunch of memories for me about all the books that I read. They all had horses. And yes, I did read Clan of the Cave Bear. And, I mean, I did that whole realm of interspecies relationship. And that is something, and again, this is kind of coming from my astrological brain. We've missed a step in my opinion. We've developed so much in the science realm, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I am saying that somewhere in there we left out some development from that spiritual, mystical side. Now, not everybody is true, and that may just be from where I am sitting right now. But I feel like this book, and I'm sure the books after, are bringing back a lot of that mystical, but also very practical wisdom that we need to go forward now. So even though these books are based so long ago, they are so reminiscent to me of what's needed right now. So thank you.
Well, as I say, I well, as my mother used to say, when just say thank you graciously.
Yes, just say
so,
thank you. It's
so,
true. This is what I try
thank
to tell
you.
people. Yeah.
And um, I do feel like this is not my story. I've been gifted,
Yes.
um, and with this story to tell, and I feel a tremendous responsibility to it, because I do think it um, there's something powerful that needs to come through, in the sense of Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic.
Yes.
Um, And and yes, it may be set 6,000 years ago, but didn't we all love, like you're saying, those historical fiction stories?
I did.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's tremendously relevant for
It is actually really
where we
relevant.
are.
Yeah, but it's very relevant. And what I'm thinking we'll do at some point is we're going to give people time to read the book, and then we will reconvene people next spring. We'll give you plenty of time to read it. We'll reconvene and we'll have a deeper discussion about the themes that are relevant to today. I think that would be a really kind of cool undercover revolutionary conversation.
Well,
Um,
and I would love to hear more from your your community.
yeah,
This has been great to have this conversation between the two of us, but
yeah,
I would love to have
exactly. So
everybody else be able
yeah.
to chime
So
in.
it'll become a conversation, but everyone, it's kind of like a book club, but not. But yes, everyone will have read the book, hopefully. Good question in the chat. Where would you like people to purchase the book? This is a very important question in our world today.
Yes, so my website is www.sarahvbarnes.com. So
Yeah, and
basically
I will put it
my
in the
name.
chat.
And if you go there, there are under the books,
Mhm.
there are two buttons. You can either go to Amazon or you can go to bookshop.org.
Nice.
And if you know about bookshop.org, it's a way to order online and then give purchase credit to your preferred independent bookseller.
Which is
So
pretty cool,
yeah,
actually.
which
I
is
love
pretty cool
that.
because
Yeah.
it's not the kind of thing. My bookseller in town here in Boulder, Colorado, was amazing about keeping it stocked for
Mhm.
the first really 2 years after it came out, and supporting me as a
Yeah.
local writer.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to, you know, keep it on hand forever and ever. And same thing with all those other independent bookstores out there. But by going through bookshop.org, you can
I love that.
shop
I love
independently.
that. So I want to,
Or go to Amazon.
yeah,
Either.
however you want to do it. And here's what we're in a minute, we'll do a raffle for one of you. But last year, I'm just gonna just put this out there. Last year we had an author join us and we had a fun idea. It was in November, so there's a little earlier, but if you haven't already gifted someone with a book, do a gift of a book. Buy one for yourself, buy one for a friend, or buy one for yourself and buy one for the library, the local library, because they might want one. Or buy three, buy one for yourself, a friend, and the library. So just as a reminder that libraries still exist. So it might be nice to donate a book to the library as well. All right. We are going to have to bring this conversation to a close, Sarah, but not because I want to, but only from time perspective. I really, I really appreciate you being here. And I do want to say to everyone, Sarah is an amazing being and teacher. Sarah, you are an amazing being and teacher. So, as your mother would say,
Thank you.
yes, there you go. So I want you all to know that there is possibilities out there for working with Sarah at some point, and we can talk more about that, or you can contact her directly. She's very friendly, so you can contact her directly. If you want to start a book club and you want this to be in the book club, maybe Sarah can zoom in as a speaker one day. You know, there's all kinds of ways that it would be fun to have her. There was a question here, and I want to make sure I got this. The Cosmic Book Club, good idea. Let's see what else. Hold on, there's many messages I haven't seen yet. Is this your first book so far? This one?
Yes,
This
and yeah,
kind.
because I didn't set out to write a novel.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, so this is the first in a trilogy,
Right.
and the second one, as I say, is almost finished. And then I know what my project is when I finish this project. And that'll, at the pace that I write, that'll probably take me through the rest of my life at this point.
Well, and that was one thing, actually, that was another popcorn in my head earlier, was just to remind people that, you've been right, you work on these books and it can take a very, very long time. And, we read about people who are pumping out 26 books a year.
Yeah, no, that's not me,
No,
unfortunately.
and that's a
But
formula that works for that type of genre usually. But this is a different experience. This really is combining the mystical, the history, the research, and the consciousness
yeah,
of
and I
what
really
it.
have to just trust the process.
Yeah, totally trust it.
And then
Totally.
I also have to say I have an amazing editor.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, who Paige Lambert, who helped shape me into a better writer for sure.
Well, Sarah Barnes, thank you for being here. And before we close out the recorded section before we have a raffle, I would like to just read the following, just as a reminder to Sarah, but also because I just love it. She Who Rides Horses, a saga of the ancient steppe, book 1. The awards have been 2022, the Best Indie Book Award, Historical Fiction, 2022, Equus Film and Arts Festival, Winnie Award, Historical Fiction, that's cool. 2022 Global Book Award, Gold Medal, Coming of Age Fiction. We don't do things for awards, but I do think it's important to recognize when they come, because it shows us that it does create a portal. It allows something to come through that other people are seeing. So it's not about the award, but it is about the connection that you have created. So thank you so much.